Hello there. As I record this, I am in my flat. Today I wanted to go through some of the pros and cons of working in a charity shop, and I say this as a person who has worked in a charity shop. You might not know this about me. In 2019, I became a volunteer for a charity shop in the town where I live, and then by 2020, I was offered an assistant store manager position. So I was an assistant manager, but I was also a cover manager, so I covered when the manager was out 2 or 3 days a week, and I did loads of social media stuff as well. I thought I would just do pros and cons, some rather vague ones, so if you're thinking of doing this, maybe it can give you some insights. Yes, there's going to be lots of jump cuts, sorry. Pro! Meaningful work. I knew that everything I was doing was contributing to supporting a cause that mattered. During the day, we would help raise awareness for the charity, but also raise awareness of just people who need help. Because sometimes you don't know that people are dealing with things until you go through it yourself. So I was creating a positive impact by just being there. So in that way, it was more than a job. Con! Limited resources. We didn't have the latest equipment. We didn't have all the equipment we needed. We didn't have heating on all floors. We didn't have the space, especially during COVID times. Nightmare. This meant I had to get super creative with what I had, and at times that was frustrating, but it can be a pro. So this taught me to be resourceful. I used whatever I could. I made use of anything I could get my hands on. I had to be quite creative within my brain every day. I was good at this before this job, but it definitely enhanced my creative skills. Con. It's physically demanding, and more so than you realise. Everything required stamina. Some would say coffee, but I'm neurodivergent, so coffee doesn't work like that for me. A good deodorant, and more energy than we actually had. I spent the entire day on my feet. I could easily do 24,000 steps a day. And I'm a person that's got a bad leg, so yes, I was in trouble an awful lot. The amount of times I was limping home or I would collapse during the job. Sounds an exaggeration, but yeah, my leg would give way. My leg couldn't cope. At the time I was doing this, I was also still an undiagnosed autistic person, so I found this even harder to manage. And I was actually on incorrect medication as well, which was not helping. I was being medicated for mental health when in fact it wasn't mental health, I was autistic and possibly ADHD, so I was not okay. I was a stunning employee, but I was a zombie the moment I closed the door. Like, you have to lock up as well, so I'd lock up and then sometimes I couldn't even make it home before collapsing internally. I gave my soul. So when I say I had no life outside of work, I had no life. Pro. So of course there was a variety of tasks on this job, and that is a pro compared to some jobs I've been in. So for example, standing on a till point and serving 300 customers with no break. It's an absolute mind. Here's just some of the stuff that we did. So organising stock in terms of brand new goods and also stock that's been donated, loads of phone calls, managing the volunteers, sorting out labels and prices, communicating with the volunteers. We were the cleaners, and all the cleaning had to be done during our contracted hours, which was the same as the store opening hours. Keeping up with the latest trends and organising the store to reflect that, and on a daily basis. Carrying hundreds, if not thousands, of donation boxes and bags in and out of the store, up and down flights of stairs, going through thousands of donations, communicating with donors, managing our second-hand online store as well, Depop. I don't know how I missed this one out because this is my background. We were also doing all of this at the same time. Being a cashier, customer service, making trips to the post office to post goods and also to keep on top with our money situation, but doing this, doing that, it goes on and on. The body certainly, but the mind was occupied from start to finish. It was a treadmill. Con. The pay is not great. I can't stress that enough. It's not good. Salaries in non-profits, especially lower down the chain, are often much lower, and budgets are tighter. There's lots of factors, but I don't agree with minimum wage for what it is, or living wage. It's not a living wage. I was earning minimum wage even when I was basically the manager, and yet in another job that I was also working at the same time, where I was the lowest employee in the whole company, I was earning more. My hours were 9 until 5 with an unpaid half-an-hour break somewhere in the day, but I often found myself working the whole way through. I couldn't leave the premises even on my break, and I was always there before and after start time. We gave so much of ourselves. Everything I've just said is one of the reasons why lots of people don't stay in these positions, because although we love it, the cons, this is a massive con. Tough one over. Right, next. Con. There, I feel like I'm back in 2013 again with all this jumping around. Okay. Like any job, customer service, so all the regular cons and frustrations there. Also, because you work in a charity shop, people think that you don't get bad customer service stuff. You do. It's like any job. So don't think that you are safe from that, because you're not. The next thing I'm about to say, I don't know if it's a con or a pro, it depends on who you are, but something I didn't expect within this job was to be a daily therapist slash counsellor for lots of people. It was more people orientated, it was almost like a community, and people would use it as a place to go. In some cases, we were the only point of contact for some people. They would come and hang out. I felt sometimes as though I was cornered. Some would sort of take advantage of that because you can't go anywhere. So people would use you as a sounding board. I found that quite overwhelming sometimes. It doesn't matter what job you do, you're going to interact with people. It's overwhelming because you're trying to do your job and manage that simultaneously, and that's hard. It's a job at the end of the day, you've got to bring in an income, and it's tough enough doing what you're doing without managing a ton of people. A pro in this though is that despite how we were feeling, we got to support people in a different way that we weren't expecting. You'd get regular customers and donors, and you could see that people truly felt like they were helping, like you helped them feel good for helping. And also the volunteering in itself, because people volunteer for different reasons. You could see that volunteering helped some people, and that's a really good thing. The cons are getting further away. Con. A lot of the time I was working on my own. Like, this was also during COVID, so it was hard to get volunteers in. And also, this is a big one, when you are in a paid employment system, like everybody around you is paid, it's quite different to when you are depending on volunteers. So there I was giving my soul, but often I had to give even more because there was no one else. So my manager and I, but especially when I was on my own, ran the store. We did everything, or almost everything. Like, there were some good volunteers. I was so supported by one in particular. So you really do give your all, that's what I'm saying. Be prepared to sacrifice everything. Pro. I learned so much about fashion. Not that I'm saying that I implemented what I learned onto my own body and what I wear. I don't have fashion sense. But I learned so much in terms of labels, companies, what stuff's made of, what is more valuable, how to style clothes on a person, what matches with what, colours. I absolutely loved visual merchandising. Sometimes before I'd even finished what I was doing, people were buying the stuff. That was frustrating, but it was amazing. I'm just bouncing around on this one. I just loved it. Loved it so much. If you're into fashion, if you're a fashion student, if you want to get experience with doing visual merchandising, especially on a budget, I recommend it so much. Even as a volunteer, you learn loads. It taught me so much. I can't praise that one enough. I just miss that. Con. People do use charity shops as their personal dumping ground, and as someone working in one, we were on the receiving end of that. In some cases, we have to pay fines if the stuff is dumped outside. You think you're being helpful, but actually you cause more problems, more financial problems as well. The amount of inappropriate stuff that was donated. I do feel as though lots of people, particularly in charity shops, get taken advantage of. Moving on from this though, the mental impact of being on the receiving end of donations, the good and the bad. Like, it's overwhelming being given donations. Like, someone's donating stuff, that's amazing. Then there were the donations where it was obvious someone had just died, and so they were donating the contents of someone's property to us. You'd get collections of similar stuff or clothing that was all in one size, and it was really sad. Like, there were many times where I cried because it was just hard to process mentally, and then you had to process it mentally and physically. At times it was quite mentally taxing. It was heavy. And the last pro is a rather light-hearted one compared to some of the stuff I've said. Sustainability. If sustainability, thrifting, reducing waste, upcycling, reusing, recycling is something you're passionate about, it's perfect because that is your everyday. I also felt good because one of the other jobs I was in was notorious for being fast fashion, and so I felt like I was sort of juggling the two. I could do that job. I mean, I didn't feel like I had a choice. I was stuck there, but I could do that job and then switch to this job and just feel like I'd evened it out. Hopefully I've illustrated a bit more about what it was like to work in a charity shop, to run one. The good parts of the job I love and I miss. I only miss the good. I've said this for a long time. If I could go back to that job and be paid more and not have to interact with a single person, I'd do it. I miss the displays. I can't stress this enough. Like, I loved it. Give me those clothes, give me that board. I want to do something, I want to be creative. My closing remarks are, working in charity shops have their pros and cons. Volunteer if you can, be a good volunteer, be a dependable volunteer. Please be kind to charity shop workers. We're doing far more behind the scenes than you can imagine. It was an absolute dream to work in a charity shop, one that had been coming for a long time. And whilst there were challenges, I'm glad I had the opportunity to do so. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.